Here's the problem. You simply are not seeing the results you feel that you should be seeing in your practice time. That causes you to be demotivated. It causes you to not make the progress you feel you should be making. Some of you have even tried putting in more time, and that wasn't the solution. Some of you don't have more time to put in. Having worked with thousands of students in my online drum school, I can tell you the problem is not that you're showing up to practice. The problem is how you're going about practicing. So I'm going to take a very simple sticking, and I am going to teach you a system that has been proven because thousands of my students have worked through this system. If you will plug it into your practice time, you're going to 10x the results that you're seeing in there. It's not some magic thing. It's simply working in a methodical way through this system. This system will take the guesswork out of your practice time. It's going to help you see tangible progress, and it's going to help you feel good about your playing. If you follow it, it will work. I wouldn't have an online drum school after almost 14 years. It's been open for almost 14 years. I wouldn't still be open if the system didn't work. So let's take one simple sticking and let's dive deep. The sticking we're going to be using for this system, or as I like to call it with my students, an assembly line in your practice time, is the paradiddle diddle. Right, left, right, right, left, left. The great thing about this assembly line is that if you will learn the components of it, you can use it for any sticking, for any groove, for any drum idea. The system remains the same, even though the sticking or the lick changes. This system, or as I'm going to refer to it for the rest of the time, this assembly line, that's what I talk about with my students, in that we're able to go through a certain number of steps, and at the end of it, just like a regular assembly line, it looks like the other things in your playing. So this assembly line has 3 levels to it. It's going to be movement, musicality, and musicianship. And some of you are already like, isn't musicality and musicianship the same thing? No, not at all. And I'll explain that here in a little bit. This first level has 9 steps. We'll go through them methodically. And here's the thing. We are simply worried about movement. That's what it's titled, movement, level 1. Movement around the kit, so that we have facility around the kit. So the first step is we have to learn the sticking. It seems simple, but we want the steps to be simple and predictable. We also want them to be achievable. You can mark it off. So step 1, learn the sticking. Right, left, right, right, left, left. Until you can play that fluidly, do not move on. Pause the video, and that's what you're working on, okay? Because we need to play it fluidly. We're not worried about dynamics, articulation. We're not worried about accents. We're not worried about a click. That comes in a couple steps. When I'm first learning a sticking, I don't want to involve a click or a metronome. I simply want to work on learning the sticking. Slow it down, speed it up. Step 2 is we want to establish a phrase that we're going to use as we work through all these stickings. So what I'm going to do is we're going to be in 4/4 time here, and I'm going to play 3 beats of 16th notes, and I'm going to play that sticking twice. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a. That leaves one more beat, and for beat 4, I'm going to play a set of sextuplets. Sextuplets means there's 6 notes to that quarter note. 16th notes, there's 4 notes to each quarter note, okay? So with the sextuplets, I'm going to play the sticking once. Right, left, right, right, left, left. Here's what that whole phrase sounds like. Now, notice we still have not added a metronome. I'm going to go into some deep concepts. This is going to be a lengthy lesson because there's a lot of nuggets I'm going to share with you. I really want to give you a lot of value. Something like this would usually be something that I'd be like, hey, go buy this. But I'm just like, hey, let's go deep on this. I want you to learn these systems. What we're doing when we're learning how the brain works, it cannot multitask. So we can't work on multiple things. So if you're trying to learn the sticking and then you're putting it in a phrase that you're also trying to learn and you're adding a metronome, well, you have 3 things that you can't do. You can't play the sticking. You can't play the sticking in the phrase for sure. And now you want to play it in time. That's why I broke it up into 3 steps. Manageable and doable. So learn the sticking, create a phrase. Once we have the phrase, now we want to add a metronome to it. I'm not going to put a metronome in this lesson because that's just a lot of back and forth, and I feel that we can get this accomplished without that. So after I've kind of slowed it down, speed it up, and I know the components of the phrase, I'm going to add a metronome and really make sure my timing is solidified. My metronome will be my hi-hat here. And what we don't want is this. be able to smooth that out. Okay, step 4. Now we get into a concept I call zoning. This is not a concept that's like new to me. I can only build on the teachers and drummers that came before me. Gary Chester has a fantastic book called The New Breed. He talks in the beginning of that book about cutting the drum set up into sections, and that only, he was pretty strict with it. His hand couldn't go in the other section. That's not what I do. Zoning is simply creating zones within your drum set that you practice in, that you know, and what it does is it expands the lick around the drum set so that by the time you've gone through all the zones, you're able to play whatever you're playing all around the drum set, all right? I teach to 5 zones. That's it. You can have 82 zones. It doesn't matter to me. But for my teaching, I found that 5 zones is enough to get the idea there. And what it does is it gives you facility here. So zone 1 is floor tom snare drum. Zone 2, high tom snare drum. And I'll repeat these in a minute so you don't have to worry about it. Zone 3 is floor tom, high tom. Zone 4 is hi-hat snare drum. Zone 5, ride cymbal snare drum. So we took something from just the snare. If we go through all those zones in a methodical way, now we can play it all here. And you're like, what about the crash cymbal? Make more zones. It doesn't matter to me, but that's what we're going to be teaching to. You've heard me mention it a couple times in this video, but I've had an online drum school at stevensdrumshed.com for this October will be 14 years. Put thousands of drummers through there. It's such a privilege to be able to run that community. If you need some personalized help with what you're doing, if you're needed knowing like how this material personally applies to where you are, I would love to help with that. We've got over 70 courses in there, tons of song breakdowns and play-alongs, a forum for you to hang with everybody, live calls every week with me where we do Q&As. We've got guest artists. There's a ton of stuff in there. The link's below in the video description. Now let's get back to the lesson. So step 4 is play the pattern that you have or the phrase that you have in zone 1. That's it. For some of you, when we play this, that low sound, because we've been playing a cack, cack, and now it's boom, boom. Your ear is going to give you the problem with learning it. Sometimes we can only learn at the speed that we can hear at. So give yourself some patience. I don't care if the right hand is on the floor tom or the left hand is on the floor tom. You only play one note on the floor tom. It doesn't matter to me. That's the zone we're playing in though. I would suggest keep it predictable at first. So for me, I'm simply going to move my right hand to the floor tom and play the phrase. Once you get that down, you may be like, oh, cool, so now I'll just play the first note on the floor tom. Or maybe I'll split the doubles. In this phase, what I'm not concerned with is being hip or cool or coming up with some cool lick. I'm trying to get facility, movement around the drum set. We'll come up with the other stuff. The third level, that's where it's an endless loop of creativity and ideas. That's where we're gonna get that, but we gotta build to that. So now we're on step 5. Step 5, move it to zone 2. Remember zone 2, high tom snare drum. Here's the kicker. I don't care if it's left hand on the high tom or right hand on the high tom. Either one, or we switch between the two. Whichever one you want to do. Pick it and then stick it. You see what I did there? Come on. I can't have a joke like hanging out there and not, I mean, it's a bad joke. It's a really bad, it's not even a joke. It's actually just, anyway, moving on. High tom, so here we go. So you'll see that I had different phrases I was doing there. Same phrase, but different voicings of that phrase. The next step, which is, we're already on step 6, is going to be high tom, low tom. Low tom. That's going to be zone 3. Zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. And we're going to, again, play the phrase. You're like, Steven, this is all like pretty predictable. Yes, it's predictable. It's step by step. When you're learning, You want to do the next most logical thing that's a little bit harder and breaks the exercise. And sometimes moving both hands to the toms, it's like, whoa, that's a lot of ringing, a lot of sound, and our ears have to adjust. Sometimes we're just not comfortable with it, okay? But that's what we want to do. We don't want to go, okay, I did those 2 zones, now let's make this crazy drum. That's not what we want to do. Let's keep moving it around the drum set. Okay, we're going to go over and over that. You will stay in these steps longer than I am. I'm going through them quickly so that you can get the whole system, the whole assembly line, okay? But the great thing is, you could take the Swiss Army triplet and move it through this. You could take right, left, kick, kick, and move it through this. You could take any sticking and move it through this because it's a predictable set of steps. Let's go to step 7. Step 7 is going to be zone 4. Remember, I don't care if the left hand's here, the right hand's here, or we're just going back and forth. Pick it and then stick it, right? I'm going to keep going back to it because it's just too good not to. It's just too cheesy. All right, it's like Velveeta coming out of your speakers right now. It's so cheesy. Okay, so we're going to play the phrase here. Now, ideally, we would have a metronome with these and we'd be putting the metronome, but sometimes you may need to stop the metronome because you may be like, hold on, that sound is throwing me off. So if we need to, pause the metronome, get it together, put the metronome back in there. I always suggest learning a new concept or idea without the metronome first. Add the metronome later, okay? Remember, we can only focus on one thing. Our brains are very much like computers. We task switch, and there's a cost associated with that. So we want to stay on the same task and make it just one thing that's a little bit harder, and then we make that better, check it off, move to the next one. The next zone we're going to, this is going to be step 8. It's zone 5, and that's ride cymbal, snare drum. And some of you are going, Stephen, I don't really like how that sounds. Well, that's cool. We can change it later. We're not quite there yet because all we're concerned with is facility. So now we took something we could just play on the snare drum, and in 8 very quick, very predictable steps, we moved it all around the drum set. Now here's the next problem, and that's step 9. That's called zonal switching or zonal mixing, okay? We've learned how to play in each of these zones, but we haven't learned how to go back and forth in between them. Some of you are like, Stephen, that's not going to be a problem. Please don't say that. I've crashed enough bands on enough stages through my almost 30-year career now that I can tell you it matters to pay attention to what I call transition places. A transition is you're playing a groove and you go to a fill. There's the groove, there's the fill, but what's in between them? A space, a transition. We have to move, and that will be the part that screws you up. Groove 1 to groove 2, that's a transition. One zone to the next zone, that's a transition. All right, so now we're gonna switch in between these zones, and I make it simple at first. I'm gonna play the phrase once in zone 1 and then once in zone 2. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit now that we've been hearing it. And what's crazy is while I was playing that, there was like, I wanted to switch earlier than I was supposed to. And that's why we do it. It's that little mental hiccup that I felt of like, switch now. It's like, no, you haven't ended the phrase. We want to play what we want to play, when we want to play it, how we want to play it. And something like this, taking the time to switch in between these simply helps you be able to do that. All right, so now I want to play in between zone, let's do zone 1 and zone 4, the hi-hat and snare drum. And then we can take and even compress that even more. Say, okay, I'm going to do the first pattern in zone 1, second pattern in zone 2, third pattern in zone 4. Let's do that. So. So now we've almost created a drum fill type of a thing, right? So we keep going through that until we've mixed all the zones and we feel very, very comfortable going around the kit and switching when we say, okay, I'm going to switch halfway through the measure. Okay, now I'm going to switch here. That's the game we want to play. I don't have sheet music for this lesson, but if you need like a program, I've got a free downloadable 30 Days to Better Doubles and 30 Days to Better Singles. Both of those downloads are down below. They're full programs. There's something that I might even sell, but I don't. I just give it to you for free, okay? So please go download those. The links are in the video description. Congratulations, you made it through level 1. Make sure you write down all those steps to that system. I've been putting them here in the video so that you can see them. It's 9 steps in level 1, which is all about movement. It's the 3 M's, level 1, level 2, and level 3. Movement, musicality, musicianship. Now we're on level 2 of this assembly line, and it's called musicianship. We've talked about assembly lines. That's an organized structure that you work through, or a system. Now we talked about zoning. That's splitting up your kit in different ways. These are concepts you can use in different areas of your practice time, by the way, and that's why I'm mentioning them. Your practice time should not be an emotional event. It should simply be you showing up and going, what's the next logical step? And the great thing that this assembly line does for you before I get to the level 2, where there's some really fun stuff, is what it does is it helps you sit down and go, okay, I'm on step 5 of level 1. Tomorrow, I'm going to start step 6 of level 1. You mark it down, start step 6. Like it's bam, bam, bam. You can mark them off as you're going. And it helps you stay motivated. I promise you this. It helps you stay motivated, helps you notice the progress. All right, level 2 is all about musicality. This is going to be a concept that I call the Big 7. Some of you have heard me talk about this. These are 7 big picture principles that when applied to any exercise helps reduce what you need to be working on or focusing on. Okay, so, or overall, instead of being like, well, I need to work on my dynamics overall, you can be like, I need to work on my dynamics in this specific exercise. So we attack them by specifics. The Big 7 are going to be timing, technique, groove, dynamics, articulation, melody, and flow. All right, and we'll go over them in that order. So the first step is timing. You might be like, Stephen, we already put it to a metronome. Yes, we did, but sometimes you can be playing to a metronome and your timing is there, but it's what I call wonky, which is a word I think I've made up. It means kind of funny, kind of wobbly, not funky, but wonky. Anyway, whatever, it's another bad word. So what we're gonna do is, sometimes we can be playing here, like I'm trying to fit all the notes in those 4 beats, but they're just uneven. So we want to make sure when we start to move it around the kit, there's no timing issues that creep in. Step 2 of the second level is going to be technique. Technique is, like, Stephen, what do you talk about technique? Technique is something that I always go back to. And so let's say that I'm playing this and I'm having trouble going from the high tom to the snare drum. I want to make sure that, okay, am I throwing this correctly? Am I tensing up whenever I'm playing? Like, am I all of a sudden becoming robotic because it's getting a little bit hard? If I want to split the doubles in between this floor tom, am I splitting those correctly? Like, we want to be able to go through all of those things and make sure that we're playing with good technique, because your technique will be good and then it won't be good and we'll get into bad habits. So as part of the Big 7, we always need to check back. Okay, the third step of this and the third thing with the Big 7 is called groove. Groove is the space in between the notes. Timing is the black ink on the page. That's like the notes themselves. Groove is how we treat those notes. Okay, and I'm not gonna go through demonstrating all of these. You just need to write them down. Groove. We're gonna get to some cool stuff in this next level too. So stick with me. We're gonna start applying this. Groove is, does it feel good when I play it? Am I playing it in the style that I want to play? Let's say this is a swung style. Well, this is not the groove I want. It'd be more like this. It's a different groove, you know, and that's kind of internal and that's kind of personal to each person. All right, so groove. The fourth thing is dynamics. Dynamics and articulation are two sides of the same coin, and I like to give an analogy for this. Dynamics is the temperature of the room that you're playing in. Right? So it's 70 degrees in this room. Articulation is the temperature of a specific item in that room. Let's say I brought the cymbal in from outside and it's winter and it's 30 degrees. The room could be 70 degrees. This item is 30 degrees. Okay? So dynamics talks about the overall volume that we're playing the piece of music or exercise at. So I'm playing at pianissimo. I'm playing at fortissimo. I'm playing a decrescendo. So what we want to do is we want to get to have these exercises. And I used to approach dynamics by having specific days that were dynamic days. So one day was, this pianissimo. Tuesdays was fortissimo. Wednesdays was mezzo. I wanted to practice all those. And then we get into crescendoing. So let's say we'll do a crescendo over one measure and then a decrescendo. We'll slowly get louder, then slowly get softer over two measures. So here we go. Okay, so you see how I messed up there. That's why we have to practice this. I wanted you to see this in real time with a lick that I haven't gone through I want you to understand this is the process. Even me, after playing all these years, I go through these processes. Why? Because my dynamics may be on par for one thing, but not another. They may be a little rusty. Let's try that again. Crescendo one measure, decrescendo the next measure. Now we're at step 5. Step 5 is articulation. Articulation is the specific temperature or how we treat a certain note. And the easiest thing with articulation is to look at accents. So let's accent the first note of each of the stickings. But we could also say, oh, let's ghost the other notes. You may be like, Stephen, wait a second, isn't that just dynamics? Well, it is. But if we're playing at a dynamic level within a piece, let's say you're playing at a medium soft tempo, mezzo piano. You want everything you play to be in that range of mezzo piano. So your accents will reduce to be played at mezzo piano, as well as your ghost notes will come down to be played at mezzo piano. Whereas if you're playing at fortissimo, your ghost notes may be a little bit louder and your accents are really going to be louder. But the overall volume, I'm going to stick myself in the eye with this stick, the overall volume is fortissimo. That's where we differ. Now, let's, and we can move as many different accents as we want around. Now, what are some of the other things? We could do accents, we can do ghost notes, we could do buzzes. Or buzz both first notes. So it really gets into kind of helping you articulate. And if your drum fills and patterns are lacking a little bit of spice to them, a little bit of, salt and pepper and, chipotle or whatever. I don't know. What is chipotle? That's a restaurant, isn't it? Isn't that a spice? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So we want them to pop. And if your drum fills and drum grooves are not popping as much as you want, a lot of times it's let's put accents in there. Let's define the phrasing. Okay, let's put a little definition, because I can talk softly but still be very clear and precise, as well as I can talk loudly but then talk with emphasis at the loud volume. Like we can slur things, and we have different ways. I can make you think it's a question just by going up at the end, right? And that is articulation of our words. We can do the same thing on the drum set. All right, step 6 is going to be melody. We don't often think about melody whenever we're playing the drums. Hit things. All other instruments, think about the melodic phrase. What's the lead line? What's the melody? everybody's thinking about melody, but drummers don't necessarily do. We have to know what melody we want to play. And it may just be like, okay, cool, so I want to play every first and every third note on the floor tom in this pattern. Boom, 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 boom. Or let's try this one. Bam, boom, ba, boom, bam, boom. That's a melody, right? They're toms with their melody. So it helps me to think musically like that way. What is my melodic phrasing going to be? And that's really where you're placing the notes in the drum fill or the pattern that you're playing. And the last one, step 7 that you can check off, step 7, number 7 of the big 7 is called flow. And this one's a little bit harder to understand, a real easy way to understand. I've got kids and it really helps me to understand flow, because if you watch them playing, don't be creepy, don't just go like watch random kids playing, but if you watch children play, you can see the ones that are not in flow. They're like, Mom, I want to go home. Isn't it time? Can I have my tablet back? Like all those things, right? Whereas the kids that are in flow are like zoned in. And this kid is building the most epic sandcastle you've ever seen. And they're just like in it. They're building it, you know, and you call their name and they don't answer and they're just like in it. And you know what that feels like? That's where I first recognized flow when I was a kid, was just being in my room and man, I was in this whole different world. That's where we need to get with our playing, specifically with each thing that we're learning. So how do we do that? The way I do that is I just take some time and I try to kind of free play a little bit and see if I can begin mixing in some of my other ideas and playing this idea around the drum set how I want to. I'm not focused on playing anything impressive. I'm simply focused on moving around the kit and not having to think too much about it, but I'm still in time and I'm still playing things that are musical and those kinds of things. So it would look something like this. And so you'll see lots of doubles, some singles. I added some kicks in there, some crashes. I'm just kind of moving around, just trying to make sure that like things are flowing how I want to. When I was teaching my son how to drive, that's what I was looking for with his driving. And some of the things while he was driving, I noticed weren't flowing. He had to think about them too much. And it's like, hey, we need to work on that some more. One of them was parking, which is a natural thing. And I took him to a parking lot. I'm like, okay, so there's some lines over there and I'm gonna go sit over here and you just have fun parking, you know? And it's like, just let them get in that flow state of not having to think about it. That's what we wanna do with our drumming. Level 3, we've reached level 3. This is the endless loop. This is the level you can be at forever. Congratulations. So this is a really fun level if you've held in there until this point. And so what we wanna do with this is we wanna work on our musicianship. So we had movement, musicality, which is all about the big 7. And now we had movement is all about just the practical nuts and bolts, how we move it around. Musicality is starting to bring out the pattern a little bit, make sure we're playing it, make sure we can flow. Musicianship is all about applying this and being creative with it. Okay, so the first step to this is decide on an idea. Now we've had an idea we've been playing, but let's move to something else just for the fun of it. And this is great because you're going to be with this idea for a long time, maybe days, maybe weeks. And then you can wash, rinse, repeat this level and go back and come up with another idea and just squeeze all the lifeblood out of this pattern that you can. So let's come up with a groove here using a little bit of a different pattern. So I'm going to use the basis of the first pattern 2 times in 16th notes through the paradiddle diddle, right, left, right, left, left. And then I'm going to play 4 single strokes. So the pattern, and I'm going to put my right hand on the hi-hat. The pattern will sound like this. Now, this is a pattern that I've not practiced for weeks and weeks. This is simply something I came up with right before I was filming. I'm like, and I got enough facility with it to make sure I could walk you through it. So what you're gonna see and what I want you to see are mistakes. And what they do is they lead you in the process. They decide where you need to focus. So you'll see some mistakes, and that's okay. That's okay. All right, so after I do that, now let's put some articulation in there. Let's put some defining characteristics in there. Or let's put an accent on the first and the fourth note. In the second pattern, I'm going to put an accent on the first, the second, and the fourth note. So that pattern. Since we're making a groove, that'll kind of be a backbeat or an anchor point. So the first two patterns together, 4E and a. And now's the point that some of you are like, awesome, I can move it over here. Too soon, too soon. Hold that back, you know, like simmer your slow boil. Let's work this out. We got to finish the pattern. We get too excited and we skip things and then we start wondering. And I want you to do that. But being creative, we need rules to do that so we can create around. The magic of playing basketball and LeBron James is not that he's so great with a ball and a basket and a hoop and a floor, right? It's not that he's so great with that. It's that specifically basketball has rules. Soccer also has a net and a ball and ground, and it has rules. Volleyball, the same thing. We could be playing any three of those sports with a net and a ball and a field. But basketball has rules. Soccer has rules. We need to make rules so we can be creative within them. And the geniuses are creative within those rules. Okay, so let's finish the pattern. I'm going to play 4 single strokes. I'm going to open the hi-hat on the first single stroke. Okay, and that's my pattern. Oh, there it is. Okay, no groove is complete on the drum set without a bass drum. So let's add a bass drum on 1 and. Let's start there. It's kind of funky. All right, now let's add one more bass drum. Let's do it on the of 3. So now, what is happening is I've discovered something that I would address in my practice time. The second pattern is actually easier for me to play right, left kick, not right, left, left with a kick on the last left. That's a little bit different. So I would slow down and I would practice that because that pattern is unfamiliar to me, even though the pattern right, left kick is familiar to me. Very small difference, but it hangs me up. Okay, so we're gonna get that going. Okay, so I put steps 1 and 2 together. What we're doing is we're deciding on an idea that's going to be right, left, you know, with 4 single strokes, and then we explore the idea. We're putting accents in it, we're putting bass drum in it, and that's kind of what we did together on this level 3 is we decided on the idea, and then I kind of fast forwarded it, didn't tell you because I got interested in it. We explore the idea. So that's step 2. We just did those 2 steps. And this idea, it's kind of a funky little group, kind of almost Tower Power-ish. And you'll notice, or I am noticing, that the of 3, that would be where I would stop and practice because it's not as clean. Again, going back to that sticking, and that's the discovery process. Exploring that idea lets you see, oh, this is kind of like something I played before, but not completely like it, and I need to work on it some. Now, step 3 of level 3, we're going to move the sticking around or move the pattern around. So the easiest thing I can do with this groove is just go to the ride cymbal and play it. And now I think I want to add a bass drum on the and of 4 too. I think that'll be fun. I'm exploring the idea. I want to add that. I think that'll be cool. And you'll notice even just that little bit of a change makes you rethink it. Let me put the hi-hat in here on quarters just for fun. What's another thing we could do? Remember, step 3, exploring the idea, moving the idea around. Let's move the accents to the ride cymbal bell. Okay, now that brings us to step 4 in this endless level 3, right? Step 4 is integrate the idea. What does that mean? Integrate the idea means take things that you know and start to play it. I start with simple things. Something very simple that I know is a 16th note fill on beat 4. Forienda, very simple, but it works with that transition of taking it into a drum fill. So let's try that. Okay, maybe it's playing it with another drum beat. Maybe I need to mix it with a drum groove like this. Okay, and you can hear me making a few mistakes. There's a couple of hiccups there, but that's what's great about this integration phase is you heard me go into the drum fill, going back in between those two grooves. That's what's great about the integration phase. We're finding the places that it doesn't fit, and we're kind of sanding them down and fitting the pieces back together, and it's going to integrate it into your playing. And this is where we take something from our practice bag to our gig bag. We take something that's unusable, and now we make it usable, okay? And now the 5th step of level 3 is repeat this endlessly. You can go through level 3 endlessly. You can come up with different ideas, go back through it, okay? This is the assembly line. It's 3 levels. Each level has very predictable steps. And if you will integrate this into your practice time, you will see progress. Check them off as you go. If this type of system is like the thing you're looking for, then my online drum school, the Drum Better Daily program, may be the thing you're looking for too. I've taught these principles to my students for almost 14 years now, and I've put literally thousands of them through this stuff. I know it works because they are the test subjects. They've tested, they've proven it. I've put it in my own practice time. But I want to help you with where you're struggling specifically. So if that's you and you're like, hey, I just need a little help here. I need a program. I need something predictable. I need a lesson plan made. Follow the link below. Check out the program. Hit me up if you need to. Help@stevensdrumshed.com. I love talking to you. I'll see you in the next video.